Hello and welcome back to Outside Views. Today we're tackling a pressing issue in British politics, the government's plans to impose tougher penalties on human traffickers operating across the English Channel. This topic has deep connections to broader questions about migration, but also Brexit and the changing political landscape of the United Kingdom. So let's dive into the details and the historical context. The issue of illegal migration across the English Channel has been a significant concern for successive British governments. In 2024, the number of migrants crossing the Channel increased by 25% compared to the previous year, reaching nearly 39,000 people. And these crossings are not only dangerous, but have also become a flashpoint in the broader debate about immigration and border control. 76 people tragically lost their lives attempting the journey this year alone, the highest record number since 2018. The British government, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has announced new measures to target human traffickers more effectively. And these measures include granting the judiciary the power to impose travel bans, restrict access to online networks, and limit phone usage for suspects even before they are convicted. The government argues that these interim measures will allow law enforcement to disrupt trafficking networks earlier and prevent further harm. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has emphasized that the current process for imposing penalties on traffickers is overly complex and time-consuming. By streamlining these procedures, the government hopes to dismantle criminal networks more effectively. And this approach reflects a shift in focus from merely managing migrant flows to effectively targeting the organized crime groups responsible for these dangerous crossings. However, these proposals have sparked significant controversy. Conservative MP David Davis, among others, has warned that bypassing traditional due process risks infringing on civil liberties. He argues that such measures could set a dangerous precedent, undermining the rights of law-abiding citizens in the name of expediency. Meanwhile, refugee advocacy groups such as the Refugee Council have raised concerns that cracking down on traffickers could inadvertently make channel crossings even more perilous. They highlight how smugglers facing greater risks may resort to overcrowding unseaworthy boats, increasing the likelihood of accidents and fatalities. This policy debate cannot be separated from the broader political and historical context of Brexit, though. The Brexit referendum in 2016 was heavily influenced by concerns about immigration and the UK's ability to control its borders. Leave campaigners argued that exiting the European Union would enable Britain to take back control of its immigration system. Yet, 8 years later, the issue of illegal migration remains unresolved and highly contentious. One of the key challenges post-Brexit has been the lack of a comprehensive bilateral agreement with the EU on migration and asylum. When the UK left the EU, it also exited the Dublin regulation, which allowed member states to return asylum seekers to the first EU country they entered. And this has complicated efforts to manage migration effectively, as the UK can no longer rely on EU mechanisms to share the burden of processing asylum claims. The Labour government under Keir Starmer faces immense pressure to deliver results on this issue. During the general election campaign in July 2024, the Labour Party promised to address illegal migration more effectively than the previous Conservative administration. Starmer pledged to dismantle human trafficking networks and ensure safer legal routes for asylum seekers. However, he faces criticism from all sides of the political spectrum. On the right, the Reform UK party, led in the charge by Nigel Farage, continues to stoke fears about unchecked migration, and Farage and his supporters argue that the government measures do not go far enough to deter illegal crossings and accuse Labour of being too lenient on migration. And this rhetoric resonates with part of the electorate who feel disillusioned by the unfulfilled promises of Brexit. On the other hand, refugee advocates and human rights organizations accuse the government of criminalizing migrants rather than addressing the root causes of their plight. They argue that a more humane approach would involve creating safe and legal pathways for asylum seekers. Such measures, they claim, would reduce the demand for human smugglers and prevent dangerous crossings. The situation is further complicated by international dynamics. France, as the main transit point for channel crossings, plays a critical role in addressing this issue. The UK and France have a history of cooperation on border security, but relations have been quite strained since Brexit. And while agreements have been reached to increase joint patrols and surveillance, these measures have not significantly reduced the number of crossings. The tragedy of lives lost in the Channel underscores the urgency of finding effective solutions. But the debate over how to achieve this remains deeply polarized. The proposed measures to impose penalties on traffickers before conviction represents a bold, if controversial, step. Proponents argue that such measures are necessary to disrupt criminal networks and save lives. Critics counter that they risk undermining the rule of law and fail to address the broader systemic issues driving migration. It's also worth examining the economic and the social context of this debate. The UK, like many developed nations, relies on migration to fill labor shortages in key sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality. Yet the political discourse often frames migration solely as a problem to be managed, rather than an opportunity to be harnessed. And this disconnect between rhetoric and reality has been a recurring theme in post-Brexit Britain. So what could a more effective and humane approach look like? Well, first, the UK government could invest in establishing safe and legal routes for asylum seekers. By providing alternatives to dangerous crossings, these measures could reduce the reliance on human smugglers while ensuring that vulnerable individuals receive the protection they need. Second, the UK and the EU would need to rebuild trust and cooperation on migration issues. A new bilateral agreement addressing asylum and border management could help both sides share the responsibility more effectively, although there are steps, but yeah. Such an agreement would require political will and compromise, but could provide a more sustainable solution to the challenges of migration. And third, tackling the root causes of migration must remain a priority. And this involves addressing global inequalities, conflict, and climate change, which force people to flee their homes in the first place. While these are long-term challenges, they are essential to reducing the pressures that drive irregular migration. So in conclusion, the UK's approach to illegal migration across the Channel reflects broader tensions in its post-Brexit identity. The government's proposed measures to target traffickers underscore the urgency of addressing this issue, but raise important questions about civil liberties, international cooperation, and moral responsibility. As the political debate continues, the stakes could not be higher for migrants seeking safety, for a government under pressure to deliver results, and for a nation still grappling with the legacy of Brexit. So thank you for watching once again, and if you found this analysis insightful, please like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget that little bell. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below the video. What do you think is the best way to address this complex issue? We'll be back soon with more in-depth discussions on post-Brexit Britain. Until then, take care and stay informed, and the next video is right here in the end screen.